Welcome to the audio conferencing center. Please enter a conference ID followed by pound. You are now joining the meeting as an unknown participant.
Hello.
Hey, Jim? Jim?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah. Who else is on the line?
KB.
Hey, KB. How are you? Good morning. Anybody else on the line? Thought I heard another beep.
I did too.
Hello.
I think it's just you and I.
Okay. Maybe that was a delayed beep after you. And how are you? Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year. How were your holidays? Did your son make it okay?
Yeah, everything was great. We had a great holiday. Unfortunately, it's been a kind of hectic start to the year for lots of different reasons, and now I'm coming down with a cold, so I apologize for the way I sound this morning, but I think I'll survive. Do you have a good holiday?
I did. My sister was here and my in-laws, so it was all good, and the whole family was together, so made it fun. So here we are. We're supposed to get snow here. I don't know where you are, but we're supposed to get snow here in Birmingham this
it's supposed to. I'm in Atlanta. It's supposed to maybe get here north of here this evening, but I think Birmingham's a little more in the path than we are. My son is up in Chattanooga, and his school was canceled today, so it's going to kind of sweep up to the northwest, I think, of Atlanta.
Yeah,
so,
we had everything canceled too here. So, anyways,
well, good. Well, I wanted to get back in touch with you, following up on our meeting in December. And again, I'm sorry, January's been kind of a hectic, and for lots of reasons, just lots of little things have made it taken me a few more days to get back to you. I was out of town all of last week, but when we met, I committed to you to do, I think, three things. One was to review the material and information that you had provided to Griff and I. The second was to discuss your thoughts with the managing partner of Balch, and the third was to get back to you in January. So again, I'm sorry it took me a few more days than I thought. Let me kind of run through the first two of those. I have taken the information that you gave me and your comments, but also the documentation that you gave me, and had it looked at independently. Had some independent folks take a look at it for me, and I looked at it myself. But then I, without discussion, turned it over to someone else and asked them to take a look at it. And there's several things, and I think most of this is obvious, but let me see if any of this is helpful. Obviously, in looking at the lawsuit itself, there's no involvement, allegation, or facts or issues that involve either Southern or Alabama. Look further into it, and there's really no connection that between Alabama Power or Southern and Mr. Cooper, who I think is the principal part of the firm that was involved in the matter that underlies the lawsuit. As far as I am able to tell, he did no work for us, and frankly, no connection whatsoever, other than the fact that he was hired for a time at one of our firms, one of the many firms that we use. The third thing that was really, you gave me some information having to do with some public documents that had involved contributions from Alabama Power's state political action committee, and looked at those in some detail, and there really is no correlation at all between the Newsom litigation and those contributions, and nor is there anything at all inappropriate or out of the normal and appropriate course for contributions to state offices in Alabama and the normal course of how the PAC operates. I looked beyond just the information that you provided and made sure that I understood the context of the information you gave me and the total situation, and again independently confirmed that there's really no correlation with the litigation or anything inappropriate with those contributions. So That's kind of that first issue, and that's kind of where I am on. That is where I am on the first issue that you raised. I did go over your information, as I told you I would, with Mr. Blanton, who's the managing partner, and including reviewing the list of suggestions that you had made for his firm. I did that actually 2 different times, and I think that he is aware that you and I have discussed it, and I have provided that information to him. I don't have an ability to influence Mr. Blanton, nor do I think it's appropriate for me to get involved, our company, me personally, on behalf of the company, in a dispute of which we're not a party. And so I have discussed that information with him. I would encourage you to take up those issues directly with him.
Did he say he would be willing to meet with me?
You know, I didn't ask him that because, again, I think that begins to be my trying to influence what he does or doesn't do. I think, KB, one of the things I want you to understand is they've got this litigation. They've got their business to run, including this litigation. I have my business to run. What I tried to do is to not cross over a line where I am influencing what he does or doesn't do. I think they have a business to run that, and I'll be honest with you, I've reflected a lot on this, and I just think that, as I told you when we met, we have lots of law firms. We have law firms of all kinds and all places that we use for various things, and that is a commercial relationship that we have with them. Where something doesn't involve us, I just don't believe it is my place, nor do I believe it's
okay. And let me interject, because something has happened, and you are now involved in the Newsom case. And I'm going to tell you. And I'm going to mention this because I wanted to let you know. I did not know this until recently. But one of the strongest things in the Newsom case showing that there is a criminal conspiracy, possibly a RICO Act, is the intentional obstruction of justice. And I'm going to just give you some background. I kind of mentioned it when we met. But one of their colleagues, not with the firm, but an independent lawyer, sent a letter to AT&T telling them in January 16th of 2016 not to release any records to anyone, and falsely saying that there was a court order not allowing it, blocking phone records. This is a lawyer for one of the co-conspirators, but he's writing about another co-conspirator. And that person, we now strongly believe, was being paid by Balch. His spouse is a partner at Balch. And on December 11th, 3 days before you and I met, you appointed her general counsel and vice president at Southern Nuclear. Her name is Millie Runland. Her husband is unethical. What he's done is deplorable, and it is criminal. And I'm going to add one more thing. On Thursday night of last week, and this is why I was trying to reach out, because I do want to meet with Tom Fanning at some point about this. On Thursday night, after I changed a diaper, I received a call from Mueller's committee. They are looking or interested in what we have written, and I've been trying to tell you, because I can't talk about things, that people are interested in this. And what Runland's spouse did, which was literally a day after they publicly announced that she became partner, was doing the dirty deeds. It appears, I should say, so I don't want to get sued, appears he was doing the dirty deeds on behalf of Balch and Bingham. Who in the hell sends a phony letter blocking the phone records, which they eventually got this last June, showing that all the co-conspirators were tied to one single phone number? So I'm telling you, you can say, well, we reviewed this and we have nothing to do with it, that there's no correlation. That's malarkey. And you talk about vendors, and let me just tell you, Balch was founded by the attorney at Alabama Power 96 years ago. You are their number one client, and you, out of community respect, need to stand up and tell them, you need to be professional and ethical. Because, week after we met, they hired Stephen Figa to be their new first ever chief compliance officer. And you say, you need to look at this stuff. Oh, sure, maybe you don't want to cross the line. You're talking about not crossing the line, but you have a moral duty to do this. Because what I'm trying to tell you, what they've done is not shameful only for Balch and Bingham. It's shameful to you, because Alabama Power and Balch are alter egos. And you may be in denial, and I know that you've been working there since 2014, but everybody knows that here in Alabama. I'm not from Alabama originally. I'm from California. But I could tell you, Jim, I've learned in the last year, because I got involved in this about a year and a half ago, or a year and 4 months ago, or whatever it is, when I first met Bert Newsom. And I could tell you that I never knew it was this crazy, and it is crazy. Alabama Power and Balch and Bingham are alter egos. They walk together, they talk together, and as I told you in that meeting, they are more concerned, Alabama Power, about Balch, as Balch is so concerned about Alabama Power, than what's going upstairs. And you may have all these different commercial vendors out there that do legal work for you, but Balch's number one client is Southern Company and its affiliates. That's Alabama Power, that's Southern Nuclear, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And this now does involve you, especially with Millie Runland, because we think it's obvious she's appointed partner in this. After a day after it's announced, he's sending this criminal letter to AT&T, which impeded the case until this past June. So I'm telling you what they're conducting and their influence here. And I thought surely you were going to call back today and say, KB, I'm getting a meeting with you with Stan Blanton. We've told them if they don't shape up, they're going to ship out. We have the right to do that. We provide them $20, maybe $30 million of business a year. They're going to listen to us. They're going to do the right thing. And by the way, they got Stephen Figa in there. He's cleaning things up. We're going to move forward. We're going to save them from themselves, because what they've done is deplorable. So it does involve you now, because you appointed someone who allegedly was involved in the intentional obstruction of justice, criminal, it appears, against, in this case. You've appointed his wife as your general counsel. And should she be general counsel? What did she know, and how was she involved in any of this? That's something you're going to have to look at internally. And she probably has a 90-day probation period, but it's something you need to look at. And I just found out about that last week when her website on Balch disappeared, and I just said, "Whoa, what's going on here?" And I ended up finding out that you guys had appointed her.
Right.
So I want you to know this is not going away. That is probably our strongest evidence of the filthy work that they've done and some of the unethical. You get rewarded for doing bad things, it appears, at Balch, and he went and did the dirty work for them. And it's obvious if he's writing about another co-conspirator's phone number, knew the phone numbers when no one else knew them. You look at well, now you can't look at them because everything has been sealed. But when you look at the subpoena that was sent to AT&T, it was just asking a broad thing related to names. He actually knew the phone numbers of another co-conspirator. So I'm telling you, it's all in the bag. There's huge risk for Balch. There's huge risk for Southern Company, and I wanted you guys to take. You are the ones, and let me tell you why I went to you, Jim. I met a dean of the legal community here in Alabama, a dean. I mean, he's an elderly man, but everybody knows him. He is respected. And he said, if you want to get Balch to change their ways, there's only one group that can do that, and that's Alabama Power. And if you can't get to Alabama Power, get to Southern Company. Because when they say jump, Balch will say how high. That's how the relationship is. And that's what I thought you would do, that you would not look at this as another vendor, as another process. This is where you could do some good. And I know that you say, well, it's not appropriate to cross the line. Sometimes you got to put your feet out. Like me, I didn't have to get involved in this litigation. Someone could say, well, it's a quibble between two attorneys. It's not. It's about a system that is corrupt. It is about a powerful law firm that is entrenched with every governor, every major power holder in this state. It's entrenched with the number one employer. And I went out because of a justice issue, because no one's talking about this. And, we have two paths that we are going to take today. Either Southern Company was going to do the right thing and say, enough of this, or it was going to take we really can't get involved because they're on their own. You can tell them. You have the bully pulpit to say, do good, by golly. And Stan enough that you could say, Stan, come on. Cut the BS, pick up the phone, call KB. He reached out to you last January. Talk to him. Let's get this resolved. Get it behind you. Water under the bridge. That's what we could have done. But what you're telling me today is that, we've looked into it, and there is. You've got the Runlin situation is probably the worst person you could have hired, because her husband is truly, everybody who's looked at this, just their mouths drop. It is criminal conduct, obstruction of justice. Anyways, what can we do now? How can we move forward? How can you, Southern Company, help stop this? And it's more than the Newsom conspiracy case. It's more than the Star Chamber. It's this pattern of behavior. How are we going to rein them in? What did Stan say to the 6 points that I gave you? Did he say, I won't talk to you about it? Let me speak to KB? What did he say?
He said that he understood them, and he would act on them as he deemed appropriate. I don't know your relationship with him or when you've reached out to him. I would encourage you to do that if that's what you want to do. KB, you've got to understand, and believe me, we take our ethical responsibilities and our community responsibilities exceedingly seriously. And I want you to know that I have looked at this in some detail, and I do not see an appropriate space for us to step into this. This is, and by the way, Millie Rowland's husband or hiring has nothing to do with this case whatsoever. And, I take issue.
But you need to do background checks, and you need to check what their ethical responsibilities are. This is all about pillow talk, and that's what I'm trying to tell you. The culture in Alabama is different.
Yeah. I assure you that we do background checks, and I assure you that is especially true when we hire people to Southern Nuclear. So I'm very comfortable with the hiring of Millie. It has nothing to do with this. Her husband is an attorney in private practice. Mm-hmm. He has, I would assume, numerous clients in numerous matters. She has her own career, and the two are not tied to one another. Okay. So for now, based on the information that I have, I've done what we can do at this level. I think your concerns are best addressed to Balch and to Mr. Blanton. I do not believe it is appropriate for us as an uninvolved third party to seek to influence this litigation.
Okay, how about the African Americans that were suppressed? You're not going to stand up for that either? You're going to say it's not appropriate to get involved in something that's from the 60s? We're not going to get involved in the Newsom conspiracy case, which is based on incorrect interpretation of a 1961 Alabama Supreme Court decision that they have the right to be ruining a rival, that they should have the right to suppress African Americans. Do you think that's okay? I'm asking you point blank. Do you think it's okay? Do you find it morally repugnant or not, Jim? Come on, take a stand. Come on. I want to hear you say, no, it's not appropriate for us to get involved. Let them suppress African Americans. Tell me that.
KB, I don't accept your proposition or your hypothesis.
So you don't think they were suppressing African Americans when they paid Oliver Robinson $360,000 to suppress African Americans?
I'll tell you what I do think. I believe that both of the matters to which you refer are being dealt with by both the criminal and the civil courts in Alabama, and I would respect that they'll be dealt with appropriately by those entities.
You need to take a stand. If this had been sexual harassment, you would have been jumping. This is racism. This is discrimination against a father that's raising 4 kids with his wife who's a single sole practitioner that they wanted his business. And you should say, enough of this, Balch. Enough of you treating blacks like this. Enough of you treating your competitors like this. And I'm just stunned, Jim. I thought you were going to come back and say, you know what, you're right. We're going to have the intestinal fortitude to rise above the malarkey, all the noise in Alabama, and we're going to put our foot down and say, enough. I mean, if I could do it, I'm a small, tiny, itty-bitty charity that we've had a lot of influence on. And people are interested in this from Washington across the country. And people are looking at it. And I thought you would have that fortitude. And what you're telling me, it's not appropriate. What do you think your institutional investors will tell us when I go up to Philadelphia and say, this is what Jim Kerr told me, that it was not appropriate to get involved in a case. This is a vendor that they founded, their subsidiary founded. Come on, Jim. I want you to take this back to Tom and say, let's do something. Will you do me that favor?
I've told you what I'm going to do about this. If there's any of these third parties that you allude to want to talk with me about it, I'm more than happy to discuss my assessment of the matter and my view of the matter with them. So if you've referenced several outside parties that are interested, and you have my number, and welcome them to, you can share my number with them and welcome them to reach out to me and let me review with them my understanding of the matter, my understanding of our appropriate role in the matter, and my decision about what we do or don't do going forward. It is simply not a matter that involves us, nor is it appropriate for us or any third party to interfere in the civil litigation process or the business affairs of other
this is stunning coming the day after Martin Luther King Day. I mean, you sound like someone saying, oh, we can't get involved, it's not appropriate for us if Woolworth wants to keep blacks out of the soda fountain. It's not appropriate. You need to speak to third-party vendors. Come on.
Hey, you're drawing preposterous analogies.
I'm not, because they discriminated against poor African Americans in North Birmingham Circula, in Trustville.
Okay. I have no evidence that that is the case, that any entity involving my organization or any entity based on the information that I've been given, that is the case. So your analogy is unfounded, and I reject it.
I know that, Jim, but listen to me. You've got a major thing here in Alabama where two Balch partners were indicted. And if this had ever happened, I mean, even Balch threw him under the bus, and you're not throwing him under the bus. You won't even say they did something wrong. I mean, I'm just astounded. I'm sitting here, and you're justifying and rationalizing their behavior. This is unbecoming. And I'm going to...
Wait a minute. I'm not justified or rationalized anyone's behavior, and I will not accept your putting words in my mouth. That is absolutely not the case. Okay. Now, I'm willing to have a civil conversation with you. I have shown you nothing but respect.
You have, but now you've said you're not going to do anything because it's not appropriate for you to get involved.
No, simply because you disagree with the decision that I've made doesn't give you the right to put words in my mouth or use inappropriate analogies and make accusations about our organization that are completely unfounded. Okay. Now, I think you need to be very careful about doing that.
Well, I'm just telling you, we need to take a stand. And that's what I thought Tom Fanning did when he called me on November 30th, was that I'm going to give you the top of the hill, Jim Kerr, and we're going to listen to our community, and we're going to get, talking about this and get these things resolved. I laid out numerous items in my email to him. I laid out some stuff with you, and I have spoken to you clearly. I wanted one thing and one thing most importantly done, that Balch be approached and told to clean up their act and to look at these things. What you're telling me is I have to go to Balch, that you don't want to get involved in it, that it's not your concern. It's between your vendor and us. Is that what you're telling me?
What I'm telling you is, and what Tom committed to you was that we would listen to the information that you had. I am reporting to you that we have done that. I'm further reporting to you that I see zero involvement from Alabama Power or Southern Company in the matter that you brought to us. I'm further telling you that I have discussed the information with Mr. Blanton as I committed to you that I would do. I'm further telling you that I see no appropriate role for us to interfere in litigation between other parties about which we are not involved. It would be inappropriate for me to seek to assert our economic influence over Balls, to have them act or not act in their best interest in the litigation. The litigation is a separate matter. We are not involved. I am not going to get involved in that matter. Right. I had told you that I would review the information with Mr.
Now
Blanton.
let me ask you an important question, because you reviewed the information.
Excuse me. Sure. Can I finish?
Yeah,
Let me finish. I have done so. I would suggest that you take the matter up directly with him.
I am going to reach out to him. And I'm going to tell him that you told me to reach out to him, that it would be the appropriate path. Now, let me ask you one question. Did you look at the Jeffrey H. Wood lobbying on behalf of Alabama Power?
I'm not sure.
I told you that Jeffrey Wood, and I gave you the documents when we met.
Yeah.
And you looked at it, the clerk of the House of Representatives, he was lobbying about the North Birmingham CERCLA matter, where the bribery occurred, the $360,000 to suppress African Americans. And I told you, why was Jeffrey Wood lobbying on your behalf if you weren't involved in any way, shape, or form with that? And that is our biggest concern. And that will make people concerned, because this was the suppression of African Americans from getting their property tested for toxic and polluted properties tested, contaminated property tested. They were suppressed from doing that. They were discouraged from doing that. And that involved, at the time, Drummond, Balch and Bingham, and Oliver Robinson. Why was your lobbyist lobbying the same time as the suppression was going on, the second quarter and third quarter of 2016? What did you find there?
It's I told you that I was in the information provided me. We reviewed the information. I have no concerns about anything inappropriate.
Okay. Well, I just want you to know that, I'm going to reach out to Tom, and maybe you're with Tom. I don't know if you're at the office or where you are, but I do want to meet with him. I want him to understand where we're coming from. You guys have the stick, the power to do good. And what you're saying now, it's not appropriate. Sometimes you have to do what's right for the community. And we're not saying one guy is wrong. You need to clean this mess up. What happens in the courts happens in the courts. I have never cared about what happens in the court. For all I know, Bert Newsom could lose this entire case. That's not the point. The point is, this is wrong. This is morally repugnant behavior. What Clark Cooper did, what Balch did in that case. The Robinson bribery case, same thing, repugnant. What Gilbert did, what McKinney did, what Drummond did, who's also a supplier to you all what they did was repugnant. And that's where I thought you would have the moral fortitude to move forward and say, regardless, we are going to take a stand on behalf of those that don't have a voice, those that have been screwed over by the system, and do right. That's where I thought you were coming from. If you're just going to listen to come back and say we're not going to get involved because it's not appropriate, then I misunderstood what Fanning was going to do. I thought he was going to take the high ground, and I'm very, very disappointed, extremely disappointed, beyond the pale.
Well, I'm sorry that you're disappointed in the results of my investigation.
No, it's not an investigation, because you didn't even know about Milley until I told you today. And let me tell you one thing. I'm going to go to institutional investors. I'm going to be talking about this. I'm going to be talking about Tom Fanning. I'm going to be talking about our conversations now. Everything's going to come out in public, and I want you to be prepared for that because I'm not going to let this die today. This is an ongoing battle. I think what you guys did was weak, and I'm going to be very blunt about it, and you should have taken a stronger stand. And you may be, this is the battle of our generation, just like people who stood up to discrimination 50 years ago. We're fighting against this institutional cronyism, this institutional network of people that scratch your back, revolving doors, and we wish you would have stood up with us and said, these things are wrong, we're not going to put up with it. And I promise you, when the communities learn about your reaction of what was going on and that you couldn't cross the line, you couldn't stand up with the father of 4 young children, you couldn't stand up for the African American community, I think people are going to be very discouraged and not disappointed. They're going to be outraged. So I'll let you go, Jim, but think about it. It's not so much what we say on the phone or in this conference call, it's what we think after the fact. And I've been fighting for 17 years, and I have put major corporations to shame that did not do the right thing, and I've praised companies that turned around and did the right thing. I was hoping to be able to praise you today and say, my God, that Fanning did the right thing, and instead you've done the wrong thing. I'm very, very upset and disappointed and outraged internally about it. Very, very disappointed.
Well, as I committed to you, we have looked at the information that you gave us. I am happy to discuss that with you further if there is new information about which I am not already aware. At this point, as I will just reemphasize, we are not involved in this matter.
You never were. You never were until you hired Millie. And you never were. I was asking you to use your influence, to use the big stick and say, come on, guys, shape up. And you're afraid to do that. I'm just stunned. I'm just stunned. I'm just stunned. I thought you were going to take a stand and say, you know what, yeah, screwing over. Next time you come out to Birmingham, drive up to 35th Avenue. Go up there, look at the neighborhood. I have, Jim. I mean, it's depressing. This is the people they hosed. I mean, Jim, you're a human being. You're like me. I mean, we went to good schools. We got good grades. These kids, these poor folks, I mean, there's 4 houses to every square block. There should be 20 houses. Of the 4 houses, 2 are dilapidated. I mean, it's depressing. And these are the people that Balch and Drummond suppressed and said, don't get your property tested. I mean, it's mind-boggling. And you're telling me, well, it would be not appropriate to help these people. You need to take a stand. So when I get off this phone, I hope you give Tom a call and you guys think about it and deliberate the next steps you're going to do right. I hope you will reconsider what you just told me on the phone. That's what I'm hoping.
Okay. Anything else?
No. Thank you, Jim.
All right.
Have a good week. Bye-bye.